Get to know all your favorite VRChat DJs all in one place. This is VRCDJ Live.
A new year, a new chance to see all of your favorite DJs and all of the happenings that are going on in VRChat. Welcome and welcome back to VRCDJ Live. My name is Rob Roman, and for those people that are just joining us for the very first time, welcome. I know we got getting a lot of new people, especially because of the new year and several different episodes, as well as our upcoming guests this month as we post up on our social medias. And for those returning, obviously you know how we get down here on VRCDJ Live. We talk about all of your favorite DJs, everything in our community, from promoters to club owners to dancers to VJs. To everybody, the whole gambit, you name it, even world creators, which also too, we're gonna be talking a lot of world creation today too. I'm very excited for it. But and just as good fashion, proper fashion for those people, it is a live show. So anybody in chat, if you'd love to ask our guests any questions today, feel free to drop them in. Obviously, there's gonna be a lot of topics to talk about. And as we kind of get into it, and as I get to introduce our guest for the month, and our first guest of the month, he DJs with the disco style, as well as the creator of the Contact Club series and senior designer at VRChat, which actually surprised me just recently. Everybody, please welcome to the VRC Studios, Electro.
Hello.
Great to have you here, buddy.
Hi.
I'm glad that we actually got a chance to get you on here. And as I try to get my camera ready here, man, there's sometimes with the colliders it gets a little crazy for me, but glad to finally get you on the show. It's funny too because you know, it just seems like I'm always in for a treat whenever I see that you're on the lineup, and it's not as often as some of the other DJs that we have going on during the scene, but when I do see that Electro's on, I'm like, oh my gosh, man, I'm gonna have such a good time. Do you think that you're going to be ramping up a lot more DJ sets in 2025?
2025. Well, I'm going to start slow because I don't really have. I sort of put a pause on bookings for a couple of weeks. Should start up again in February, but I imagine I try to keep it capped at like one a week. I'm probably going to keep going at about that pace whenever I put them back up. So.
You know, another fun thing that I see that is very interesting is I actually got to glance at your YouTube. And I know, again, a lot of people in VR, when they're coming in to see some DJ stuff, whether it's performers or venues or something like that, obviously they're coming in for a treat. But man, oh man, do people need to go see what you got cooking up on YouTube? Like, for real, though. And even the fact that you have a couple of mixes up there for the past 2 years, I want to break down a little bit about what's going on up there, because I think a lot of people, I mean, they do recognize how busy you are, but like, for real though, one of the things that I wanted to touch upon with those videos is obviously a lot of people know you for your disco stylings, your funk stylings, those throwback stylings. But what surprised me the most on the YouTube was all of your hard techno that you got going on there. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the hard techno stuff. Hard techno was it's a lot of fun to play, and it's so opposite to disco. So I can understand why it would be a little surprising to like go through my YouTube and see that I have some of those up. I think I might have mostly hard techno at this point, but yeah, I haven't checked in a while. But yeah, the hard techno stuff, it brings a different vibe, and I like to play it sometimes. It lets me play at places that don't want disco, and I just like the genre. Like, it's just party vibes, right? You know, you can go hang out at a disco place and chill or dance or whatever. You go to a hard techno event, you're probably there to have a lot of fun. So I like playing it. It's fun. I don't play it as much anymore. Maybe like once or twice a month or so, but yeah.
I know, especially for me, when I'm expecting an electro set, I'm expecting the disco, and I get all excited. And I know we're going to talk a lot about the genre today during the show, just because from all the different genres that we have been experiencing in VRChat, it does seem like it always seems to always be there for us if we've ever needed it. But I think a lot of other people, when they come in here, they are expecting something else, or they hear of something else going on in our scene that they would rather go and check out. But I don't want to even ask what came first, the disco or the hard techno, but like that to me, hearing about that, that's kind of I was like, oh my gosh, hard techno. Is it just like, was it ever a flavor for you at the beginning, or was it disco to begin and then you kind of just led into that?
Yeah, well, it was disco to begin with for sure. My first, I don't know, like 6 months playing in here were all disco sets, mostly new disco back then. A whole bunch of like breakbot and that sort of like flavor. And then after a little bit, I got invited to play at a techno show because I frequented like techno venues and sort of like harder dance music venues. And at one point they're like, "You DJ? Do you want to DJ hard techno?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, fine. That sounds good. I like it." So I went and found a whole bunch of tracks. The first time I played was at Techno Tuesday, almost 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago actually. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun, those old events.
So how did your love? Because I mean, no, for me, understanding drum and bass, like I was like, I don't think I'll ever get there. Obviously, I could listen to it, but I may not understand it. And it wasn't until this past year, after going to Liquidity in Amsterdam, that I actually got to like immerse myself into that kind of genre stylings. So did you have a moment with the hard techno when you first started to research it or experience it? Kind of like the same way with the disco. Did obviously the disco came first, but what was inspiring to learn both of those types of genres when you were first starting out?
I don't know. When I start to like learn something, I kind of have to follow through with it and get as good as I possibly can, as quick as I possibly can. So I just spent a whole bunch of time just like, you know, I feel like grinding is almost like one of those buzzwords at this point, but it's a little bit like how it was, you know. I played my first hard techno set and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get good at this. So then I played a whole bunch, a bunch of sets per week, got super burnt out, but kept on pushing through it. And yeah, I don't really play it too often anymore. Only just like maybe once every other month. But
Did that just kind of like happen? Did you just were like, because the way you're saying it is like, I need to learn it so I can get good at it. I would assume that there was a love for it or an interest in it before you wanted to get really good at it.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, like I was saying before, like I went to a bunch of hard music events. Like I went to Techno Tuesday all the time, and I really liked the really hard stuff. And then I went over to, like Vibe Tribe was, they're still really awesome. Went to a lot of those events back then too. And I'm not too big of a fan of mixing things like hard style, or hard dance or those sorts of things. So hard techno is just sort of like, all right, this is sort of like something I can learn pretty quick, and I really like the music genre, and I can bring my own sort of like flavor to it. So that's what made me focus on it.
And it was kind of always kind of going back for those people that don't normally see Electro's disco sets. Again, it still shocks me to kind of go in and just be like, I'm looking at these videos kind of being like, it's not a phase, mom, but at the same time, like you're really doing your mark when you promote that sort of stuff. Take us back to like how you even found your love for disco, because I know for me, obviously growing up, I had a lot of those tapes, a lot of those CDs. My father had a ton of 45s and LPs, and just kind of, I guess growing up for me, I wanted to be funky. I wanted that. I wanted to understand a funk. I wanted to understand how that was going on. But so at what point in time did Electro find the switch to get funky?
That is a good question. I don't really know. I can tell you that, like I grew up around a lot of like 80s music. Not specifically disco, just all kinds, like hair bands and pop and everything. That that was, I guess, the start of that. And then I guess during late at some point I started adding a lot of like new disco tracks. There was kind of like a resurgence around like 2008, 2009, where I really started to sort of like add things to my playlist. Before that, I was listening to a lot of like indie music, indie rock, like that sort of stuff. Really popular back then too. And then going into, like I added a whole bunch of breakbot to my playlist. I've always been a big fan of like Daft Punk too. So Random Access Memories was a huge sort of like inspiration to get more into like the disco kind of sound. Um, and then I guess it just kind of went on from there. A lot of the tracks I played really early on were just like straight out of that playlist I made back in like 2009, 2010. And yeah.
It's awesome that you're bringing up Random Access Memories, just because there is a track on there by Giorgio and how he kind of sits down and talks about the click track and all the synth sounds and stuff, and especially sounds with Moog and stuff. Have you ever considered, I know this sounds like a deep question to ask, but it is a new year, so you never really know. Have you ever really considered like making your own stuff? I feel like you would be well versed in something where you could produce your own stuff.
Yeah, I've definitely like considered it. There have been a couple of times throughout the years after I started playing where I've downloaded, like Ableton, FL Studio, whatever, and I start to poke around in it. But I end up just not having enough time. Like I have so many other like projects and things going on that like it's whenever I pick up a new hobby or something I like to do, that new thing is the first thing that kind of falls under the falls under the radar. Um, Especially like if I'm doing it because I just like have a passing interest. I want to put some beats down and like figure out where it goes. Like it's just not going to stick with me. So
It also doesn't help that a lot of producers and artists, they don't talk about all of the time it takes to even like release a record, let alone the 2-year process of you sitting there trying to piece together something that you think will work out, but then at the end of the day you're like no, this is all wrong, and man, you should have heard of the 50 takes I already did, and kind of introducing that. But even now, so like just understanding the new disco and understanding the new age of thing. I would love the fact that you brought up Breakbot. That gentleman is such a genius, and I'm upset because there isn't really a lot of new music from him. I obviously as well, Chromeo has just been really dominating lately, especially with their latest release, and I've been so stoked about it, but it's so difficult to find the people within our community that will just actually take the time and sit and vibe, as well as understand some of the new age things that are coming up. Besides obviously Daft Punk and Breakbot, is there anything else? Are there any other artists that you're interested in now that you want to tell people about?
I mean, like a lot of the Ed Banger folks. Really, that's one of my biggest like labels that I look at. Other than that, like not really. I have had like the same kind of like, I have a classic disco playlist, and I have a new disco playlist. Neither of them have been updated in like 5, 6, 7 years, right? And I kind of just like revert back to those whenever I'm just listening to music for fun. Otherwise, I'm going on to like, Beatport, BeatSource, and finding stuff and just things I like to listen to. So, yeah.
Without getting too in depth with it, I know my community the past several weeks, and again, I'm going to tug on your heartstrings a little bit. Past several weeks, they've all been interested in music that you would hear at like a clothier or like Ames or Kmart or Sears. And there's something nostalgic about that, and it's awesome. But man, oh man, like have I invested a lot of my time in investigating all of the sounds of all the good sounds that we had several years ago. So much so that Spotify has a Kmart playlist of all of like the best hits from back in the day, and it kind of kills me because I'm just like these are all really good, and even the disco standards now, like either the new ones or the old ones, they both meld really well, and the old ones are still kind of very popular comparable to how they used to be back in the day. So obviously, we want to keep the funk alive, obviously funk forever, but in your opinion, do you think we're going to continue to stay funky in this year? Do you think 2025 is going to be the year?
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know if it'll be the year, but you know, I think it's been coming back in kind of like a pretty big way. Like you have um like people like Purple Disco Machine like filling stadiums and shit. Um and like I mentioned, Breakbot's pretty huge. He had like the meme kind of thing going on for a little bit there, but all of his music's amazing. And yeah, I I don't know if 2025 is the year for it, but I think it's definitely like coming back.
I think it's nice to actually be able to let loose and vibe. What was it? We vibe in 2025. Is that something that we were going to try to piece together? Just try some sort of phrase kind of going on. But obviously, we're going to talk a little bit more about this because of we got an opportunity to sit down together the other day, and you were able to showcase a lot of the things that you had been working on for the VRChat community. That I think a lot of people need to recognize more. I think these people need. I think a lot of people need to take some time and vibe and find something cool and exotic and exciting. And I think what you've got kind of lined up with the Contact series is going to be absolutely what people are going to be needing to kind of like relax and kind of explore a little bit of the VRChat space a lot more than just basic underground stuff. I want to get back into your YouTube stuff because again, you got to keep posting more stuff because I think a lot of people are hungry for that. But at the same time, there's a lot of big pieces, a lot of big moving pieces on your YouTube mixes that we need to actually identify. The fact that you've played Slyfest, you've played at Shelter a couple of times. You even had a set during the New Year's Eve map 2023. And obviously a lot of other amazing clubs, Rizumu, definitely for a fact, as well as the Beat Syndicate. You know, obviously that's kind of a really big thing. You've managed to get this done in a matter of years, like 2 years. Take us back to like when you first started doing this compared to where you are now.
Well, I don't know. So like I mentioned a little bit ago, like those playlists I used to make years ago. That's kind of the music that I played when I started. And there's definitely a niche for it still. But it's kind of like the lower BPM, still kind of danceable, but you kind of have to really be vibing with it in like the 100 to 110 range, right? That's sort of where I started. Really, I love that stuff, and I'll dance to that stuff all day, right? But you know, if people are looking for like a party, looking for agreeable like dancing music, it's not really going to vibe with a whole bunch of people. So that's where I started, and I still do those sets occasionally. You mentioned the Shelter. One of the Shelter sets was their ShelterCon, I believe in 2023. That one was actually the last one I've played of that kind of like old style of music that I used to go for. Now it's a lot of like disco house, new disco, and funky house in that sort of 120 to 128 ish kind of range. Very agreeable stuff, very danceable stuff, and that's kind of been what I've focused on most recently. And I love that stuff too. It's not like, you know, I favor one over the other. I have a certain nostalgia for some of the older stuff, but a lot of the newer stuff is just, you know, it has so much more energy. If you go to one of the clubs in here and you hear that music, you're probably going to get, you know, you're going to be feeling funky a little bit. So
Out of the past couple of years of you being able to go to a lot of these clubs and a lot of these events to perform, what kind of feedback do you get from a lot of the people that you do perform for, either IRL or in VR?
What do you mean? What do you mean feedback?
Well, I mean, I think for a lot of the DJs when they do perform, they the norm is you get off a stage and then all of your friends are like, "Oh my gosh, Electro, that was an amazing set." You know, kind of like, "Oh, you did a thing. Whoa, cool." But for me, doing a lot of throwbacks, a lot of 90s stuff, a lot of early 2000s stuff, the feedback that I normally get are from people that proactively are looking for that style of music. They're looking for the throwbacks, And I don't want to call them the older crowd because I don't know, that seems like a negative term if I ever saw like, oh, you're getting old. Okay, great. But it's just a matter of they're looking for their vibe and they're looking for their tribe. So when they hear your style of music and the way that you perform, I'm kind of looking to see what kind of feedback, because as you were saying, bringing disco back seems like it could be quite a feat comparable to something like hardstyle or dubstep or drum and bass.
Well, I mean, I've pretty much just heard that people like the music. To be completely honest with you, I yeah, I mean, it's really tough to say. Like, and you see disco events kind of often now, so people are enjoying the music. And it is kind of a lot of like the like, oh, nice set, I haven't heard that song in forever. That's why I love digging into some of the old stuff. I don't really play the classic version of the old stuff very often, but when I do, it really hits. People love that stuff. But the remixes are also like, there's just something about like the newer style of it that people enjoy just like that little bit more. It bridges that gap between like you mentioned, like the older generation who kind of wants to hear like the classic track of it. Just adds like a little bit more bass, a little bit more danceable rhythm, and I think that's kind of what that is.
It's interesting to see a little bit of a resurgence from, I don't want to even say a younger generation, but there's gaps of generation that come back. And I know for me growing up, it was a matter of listening to like, I was kind of upset yesterday because I was looking for my greatest hits tape of the Monkees. And I was like, oh, that's right. It's a tape, not a CD, not a digital download. And I just didn't have it in my archive. So I was just like freaking out. But even then, like even Elvis Presley, I feel like there is going to be another generational gap where maybe Elvis isn't remembered as he used to be, comparable to like, let's just say 10 years down the road when another generation comes in, learns of it somehow, whether it be through history or their parents or their friends or something, or producers that like make an edit of it or something that brings it back to the club. Kind of like a Little Less Conversation when that track came out. But just being able to see that and then getting the feedback from the people that know the track, because I feel like some of the times we would like to try to test the waters on some of the old kind of tracks that we know comparable to somebody that might actually know it offhand. So understanding that surprise and understanding what people are looking for when it comes to that sort of genre, two different avenues in VRChat. So it's always interesting too, because again, even it's not just disco alone. It's all the different genres that we've got cooking on in here. Is that occasionally you play something back in the early 2000s, really catch some people off by surprise. But at the same time, it's an older track. We retired that. We put it in the ground. And then someone dug it back up, and they're just like, "Oh man, no, that's crazy." So that's where I'm going with the genre thing, is because like again, bringing disco back is great, and I think I think we need more of that. But it's going to be a challenge to me, I think, and I would love your opinion again too, is trying to figure out what tracks people recognize or know that we as DJs don't know when we want to play those.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Like, what occurs to me is you mentioned like the Kmart tracks and stuff, right? A lot of those older tracks, like people remember going to their store as a kid and they hear something on the radio, and they get that just like bug in their ear, and they're like, okay, this is just stuck there forever now. They hear that again 10, 20 years later, and they're like, oh, I know this track. Like, but it sounds different now. I can like actually dance to this. I think there's just like this transition that happens at some point, where it switches from like Kmart style music, Kmart style music. I love that stuff, but you know what I mean. To be something that's like a little bit more modern sounding, and it's like I said a little bit before. It's like agreeable. It's good music. Like people can go to the venue and enjoy it without needing to be into the genre to enjoy it. And that's one of the sort of biggest powers, and being able to tap into that like the over the loudspeaker style Kmart tracks. Like it's kind of like a cheat code, I think, to everyone's heard like Dancing Queen, right? When's the first time you heard Dancing Queen? Like, I don't know, somewhere, and that's the same for a lot of those old tracks. So
Would it ruin you if I told you that on that same playlist they actually put Darude Sandstorm on there?
hell yeah!
I don't,
Oh, that's awesome.
I don't know if that's a Kmart track, but
I don't know if they ever played that at Kmart. I'd be very surprised if they played that at Kmart.
You imagine going to Kmart and you're just like running around with the shopping cart, like trying to grab as much as you can and just being reckless about it.
Maybe they were testing something. They're like, let's play something high BPM, get people shopping quick. I wouldn't be surprised if they did something like that.
The blood pumping while you're getting those discounts, no doubt.
Yeah.
This is VRCDJLIVE. We're sitting in with Electro, and one of the things that again really surprised me, and when it comes to this game, and or social simulation, if you will, is I think while there's a lot of people that are proactively seeing if the developers are running around doing, they're mingling with the crowd, or I think there was a real quirky way of just being like, oh, the developers aren't in here all the time. I mean, they should be working, but they are working, but they're in here, So learning about your role in the VRChat developer scene, why don't you kind of take us down the kind of the avenue of how that even got started and some of the things that you've done so far for VRChat?
When you say how things got started, like how I
how'd you get on
or...
the team, and what's your role on the team, and what have you were able to accomplish that you could tell us while being in VRChat?
Gotcha. Well, I studied game design in college, and I've worked primarily in education. When I graduated, VR was just about to hit consumers with things like the OG Rift and the Vive. So I've been developing for VR, like simulations mostly for training and that sort of thing for, I don't know, probably close to 10 years. That's how that goes. Then eventually, VRChat opened up some job postings, and because of my background in design, I applied for one of the design roles and I ended up getting it. That was, I mean, I was a VRChat user way before I was a developer, and even after that, since then, like I still average like 5-6 hours a day in VRChat, and that's not during work hours. That's on my own time. Like I clock out and then I put on the headset and I'm in here. Obviously, I get in VRChat for some of the work stuff too, but yeah.
That seems to be pretty. Again, it's always very interesting to hear a little bit more about either the development side or even more people that are interested in helping with the development of VRChat, especially in the past couple of years, as it has started growing ever since I remember in 2017, but obviously back to 2014. I can't believe it's been 11 years already. But kind of moving forward, I mean, that's partially the reason why we have this program to begin with, is getting a better understanding of kind of where the DJ scene is headed, where VRChat is headed, as well as VRChat's role, being able to promote a lot of the DJs in here, for giving them opportunities to come in here and the tools to succeed when it comes to performing and having all these performances. So I know you were telling me the other day that you did come in back in 2020. I believe that's what you said. It was the first time that you were in here.
Yep.
Talk to us a little bit about the first couple of weeks for Electro and what got you into VRChat to begin with.
First couple of weeks. Well, this is quite the story. Actually, I answered this on Blue Sky the other day. If you want like the full version of it, but basically, I've always been interested in social platforms. I did a lot of World of Warcraft. I watched a lot of. I didn't actually play Second Life or use Second Life myself, but I watched a lot of people like YouTube channels go in and like troll people, and I thought that was hilarious because I was a kid, right? I was like, oh, it's funny. He's making fun of the internet people. And then at some point, I was like, you know what? I don't want to make fun of the internet people. I want to be the internet people. I'm just like fascinated with the online communities and how they kind of grow over time. I got really into World of Warcraft for similar sort of reasons, right? Like I didn't realize it back then, but I was only really playing to like talk to people, join guilds, and then just kind of like bounce around social circles. Um, Eventually, at some point, I was looking at Twitch and trying to find some people like on Second Life, like making fun of people. And then I found that um, it's banned. You can't actually stream Second Life.
Oh,
So I was like, you know what, VR chat's kind of the next best thing. I was aware of like all the Knuckles stuff way back in the day, um, but you know, I went to the category. It looked a lot different back then than it does now, and I happened upon people playing in headset in VR chat, and I was kind of amazed. Like playing music, right? Like live DJs, full body tracking, um, and yeah, that was pretty incredible. So I decided that I needed to join in. Um, so I already had a headset, put it on, added the host of that club. It was Floydian Sound playing at Rizumu. So I added Aliquem, who was the host of Rizumu at the time, and kind of just joined in. The first couple of nights, I was very confused because I didn't have the ramp up that a lot of new VR chat users have, where they're like black cat, find avatar, and then keep going from there and building up over time. I kind of just jumped into the deep end, right? Like I joined around when VCat was still going on, so I went to VCat, tried to find an anime avatar, um, but they all were sample avatars. I didn't know what that meant. So I went to Elysium KMK with a booth sample avatar with a gigantic box over my head that said sample as a visitor. So I totally didn't stick out like a sore thumb. Um, but you know, it was fun. It was fun, and people were nice. And you know, from there, I was kind of like, okay, I need to do more research and actually like look into stuff. Next couple of weeks, like I was already sculpting like a 3D model because I've done a whole bunch of 3D modeling and 3D sculpting. I was looking to become a 3D character artist at one point. So I was like really deep into like ZBrush and Substance Painter and that kind of thing. Um, Made an avatar. I didn't really like it. It was a little bit too realistic for me at the time. Especially back then. I was super shy person. You'd never see me like go go to a club and like dance around. I'm way too self-conscious to do that. Or it was. And then I had just this kind of like thing where I'm just like I can make my own avatar that kind of fits what I would need out of it. So I made this little turnip character, little stubby arms and legs. No one can see you really like moving, but they know you're jamming out. Real small too, so it kind of blended in. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what the first few weeks were like.
I know we were talking a little bit about the return of DDVR that surprised a lot of us in our community because I guess they took a little bit of a break. But then they kind of came back a couple of weeks ago and everybody was trying to get up in there. But talk to us a little bit about how Rizumu was looking like at that time, as far as the avatars, the vibe, some of the sounds that you heard from some of the DJs.
Hmm, that's a good question. So back then, there were only like a handful of clubs going around. You had MVP, DDVR, Just Party, Rizumu, and you know, just like a handful of others. At that point, it was a lot of house music, that kind of like agreeable music that you just kind of go and you're like, okay, I could see this being played at a club, and I think a lot of it was, you know, you go there, you talk with friends and that sort of thing. Um, then those back then, they only really played a few days a week, right? So you had Rizumu and DDVR on Saturdays, you had MVP Fridays, and Just Party Fridays and Wednesdays. I don't know if they were doing Wednesdays back then, but that was really it, right? So if you logged on like a Thursday, you weren't gonna find a party somewhere. You were kind of out of luck. So I know a lot of the folks would actually go to like MMD worlds. They'd go to like those pre-made club worlds, Void Club, Volt Club, and try and make their own party. So it was weird times back then, but I like it. I kind of liked it back then too. So.
And then all of a sudden, we're here. We're here.
Yeah.
We're here with the vast amount of DJs and clubs and
Was it 800? 800
yeah,
clubs?
something like that. About 800 clubs on the timeline with 500 active, at least one event throughout the year. Tell me your opinion on that. Do you think that's too much? Do you think we need more? But comparable to like how it was several years ago.
I don't think that there is an oversaturation of clubs. Maybe a controversial opinion. I think that every new club that comes into the picture brings something new to the table. And the people that attend that club and make it like their home base, like different people for each place, right? And as long as there are people that are still finding that home for themselves, there aren't enough. There aren't enough clubs. So I think that there is no critical mass. There's always going to be space for more, both clubs and people and DJs and all of that.
I know it seems like such a little bit of a hot take, a little bit of a controversial opinion, just because like it is something that we should be talking about. I would say maybe once a month, just to make sure that we have enough. I know a good pushing point was, I think a lot of people recognize the 130 cap instance of New Year's that we got to see. I didn't get to experience it. I've only got to hear what other people got to experience it, if it worked, if it didn't work. I didn't hear of how any of that worked out later on, because let's be honest, yesterday we were all in bed, we were all tired, we all had a lot going on. However, we do want to keep abreast of it and keep an idea of how we're headed with this, just because there are a lot of people that believe that there are too many DJs, there's too many clubs, and there's too many events, even Fridays and Saturdays. You know, it always seems to be just a mass selection for you to see, and a short amount of time to see everybody in here. But just as you've said, you know, it is nice that we have choices, and we can make those choices to how we want to spend our night. You know, you don't have to be like, oh, here's the popular club, oh, here's you know, something new or something. There's always something to choose with any kind of genre that you got going on. And you may be right. You know, it'd be nice to get a bunch of other DJs in here with even more facets of different playing styles and being able to explore those avenues a little bit more.
It's like it's an art, right? So making a club, you're making art, and no one night between clubs is going to be the same. So you're experiencing something totally ephemeral that will never happen again, and multiply that by 800, right?
Mm-hmm.
One sec. I think my headset's getting weird. There we go. Yeah. So, anyways. No two DJs are going to play the same stuff. No two clubs are going to play the same stuff. Or really like even have the same lineup, just because there are so many people bringing different things to the table. You jump around on a Friday. You joined on me one time. And I was just going club hopping, going around every club that was open at the time, just seeing what was going on. And a part of why I do things like that are because, you know, you get to experience that moment that'll never happen again. And yeah, I really don't think there's an oversaturation. There's too many. They're all good options, right?
What I also find interesting about our community too, and just recently in the past couple of months from some of the guests that we've had on the program, is the lack of VJs and lighting people. And I think it was just a matter of the past couple of months where those lighting people and those VJs have also kind of extended the invitation, the olive branch of being like, we could teach you, you know, come on in. We could show you these different things. I know we're going to talk a little bit more about the DMX lighting and the applications, and especially the stuff that you got cooking in your worlds. But, and I think that's just another awesome facet that we can continue to like hone in on, because there are a lot of people that don't want to DJ, or they don't think they have enough skills to DJ or whatever. But there's so many other things and avenues that you can be a part of our community that are actually really needed right now.
Yeah, totally. It's hard to remember a time when there weren't VJs around, but they are definitely a scarce group of people, and there really should be more of them. Same with lighting people, and it can make all the difference in a set. If you have visuals that are reacting to the kind of music that you're playing in a special way, then people are going to remember that. Same with lights, like all of the shader effects that you can do in VRChat to DMX controls. Someone actually has their physical controller up. It's the difference between a night being kind of like, all right, it's a party night, and then it's like, wow, this is an experience. This is incredible. Like all the lights are moving to the music, everything's on beat. Like it's incredible. So yeah, if there's anyone thinking about doing VJ stuff and visuals and lights, then you should try and get into it. And there's plenty of people willing to teach you.
And that's super interesting for this kind of a nice little factoid that I think a lot of people need to understand, especially now, is that even though DMX lighting exists, it has been going for a while, and it has been enhancing your club nights because the lights were going at the same time as the music. You may not understand that when you first get in there, but when you do notice it and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is really neat. You know, that is something that I think that VRChat brings to the table, that a lot of people don't recognize at the beginning. But then once they start to learn more about how all of that works, is gonna, they're gonna continue to tell their friends. And now is the perfect time too, with all the new hardware and the holidays and stuff like that. I want to continue on the path of understanding clubs and VR and how social media has been helping out with that. And I wanted to bring light to the PBS special that you got to be a part of, talking about the VRChat dance scene. And you brought in a lot of our friends from the community, Aliquim, obviously Rue, Two Tone Disco was a part of it, as well as kind of doing a nice piece upon Shelter and Rizumu. Talk to us a little bit about it. I know it got released 2 years ago, but it still has raked up about 93,000 views still on YouTube.
Yeah, the PBS special was well, it's an episode in a series that they did. Like it's I don't want to mince. It's a part of a larger thing, and I totally recommend that people go and watch all of those things. Jojo, who was the host of the VRChat episode, hosted all of the other ones too, and they're incredible. My involvement with that, I was still working at my old job. I wasn't on the VRChat team yet. They sent me a DM, I believe, on Twitter, because I had DJ, VRChat, and writer in my bio, and apparently I struck all of those boxes. So they sent me a DM, and they asked me to write the script for the episode. So I did a whole bunch of research, created the overview for it, sent it in. Picked the interview candidates and picked the clubs that we were going to focus on. Really just like amplifying the voices that I think needed that amplification, and also just showing what the community's about. Like I tried to get as many of the sides of VRChat that could interest people into the documentary as possible. So you have like the almost concert-esque things with Shelter. You have the party nights with Rizumu, and you have kind of like a really awesome mix between with things like Deviate Beat Syndicate. That was a whole lot of fun. And then after we wrapped that, we had we had like a release party in VRChat where we all got together. And a fun fact, actually, all the shots that you see of Deviate, Totsy's venue in that documentary, were opening night. I still kind of feel a little bad about it. I asked Totsy if we could open up Deviate to show kind of like the fantastical venues in VRChat. And they opened it up a little bit early just for that one event where we did some shooting in there. But yeah, it was an incredible thing to be a part of, and I'd do it again if PBS messaged me. So hit me up, PBS.
Yeah, we definitely want some really awesome videos from PBS as well. But have you been kind of keeping up with a lot of the VRChat rave content that you probably see up on YouTube? There's been tons and tons of videos as of recently.
What do you mean? What kind of content?
Oh, there's a whole ton of different videos up on YouTube that's shining light upon the rave scene and some of the DJs and some of the genres. And I mean, without going into extreme detail about like, I mean, obviously there's some positive things, but then there's some also negative things about like excessive drinking or nudity or people coming in to think that they're going to troll, but then it becomes such a really bad moment. I'm just kind of interested to see if you've kind of looked online to any other types of VRChat rave or VRChat club content on YouTube.
Sure. I mean, there's not much that doesn't cross my desk, right? Not in a professional sense, right? Like I'm on YouTube just as much as anyone else, and VRChat is so much of what I do. I pretty much see all of the things that go on. That said, like, when people make some kind of videos about VRChat, it's sensationalized in a lot of different ways. VRChat is a place just like anywhere else. And there will be people that are bad actors, and they shouldn't be doing that in VRChat, but it's a place. So
it's totally understandable too, and I obviously there's a lot of other content creators in VRChat that are looking to push more positivity. And there's a lot of different things in VRChat alone that really need attention, and they really want to boost that type of content and an understanding. As well as, I mean, I feel like some people do recognize some of the more shadier things, but bad news is always news. That'll always get some sort of a click. But for the good majority of us, spreading positivity and giving other people a better look and light on how we like to come in here and have a good time and not have to worry too much about all the negative things. Just obviously continuously spreading positivity.
The good stuff doesn't really escape the circle of VRChat all that often. The sensational stuff is what drives clicks. So if you hyper focus on one thing and cut out any context and are like, this thing is happening here, it gets you more money. So people want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So all the videos that are actually focusing on some of the good stuff that's going on, I think those should definitely get a little bit more spotlight going into the future. And there have been some that have broken out of that, but there should definitely be more.
I mean, obviously, brain rot is like the term of 2024. I think that's what I think that was like a Webster's dictionary word of the year or something like that. I mean, we all deserve a little bit of brain rot, especially if we work really hard throughout the weeks. But at the same time, spreading positivity in this game is always a very good idea. Speaking about positivity, I want to kind of pick your brain a little bit because I think a lot of people have been recognizing it a little bit more, and I'm interested. Obviously, I haven't talked to some of the others that have performed, but it does seem like a lot of the developer team is starting to get interested in DJing. And they're DJing a little bit more. Obviously, you have a good chunk of experience compared to someone who may have just kind of jumped on the bandwagon maybe like a year ago or a year and a half ago. What is your take? Do you think we're going to start to see more VRChat developer DJs in the future?
Probably. I mean, something that not a lot of people know, I guess, is that there are a lot of people that are tangential to music that work for VRChat. In all kind of aspects. You have like VJs, you have producers, you have people that are making like sound effects and stuff, right? Not even maybe not even professionally for VRChat. They're just kind of like doing it as a hobby. And there's a lot of people like that. So I would bet that there'd be a lot more DJs. And we have like I was trying to count maybe like a dozen DJs. So we have a pretty solid amount. So,
and I did get to see Tupper actually perform about 2 weeks ago, and it's kind of a rarity case just because obviously the developer team is always very busy working on things, but having a moment to take a break, reflect with the community, as well as perform. And one of the things that he surprised me on was he I feel like we can connect a little bit because he was like explaining how he's like, oh, I had two mess ups and the transition wasn't good, and I was hoping that people weren't going to recognize it. I'm like, dude, you're focusing too hard. Like, just, we all had a good time. You have to recognize that about like 80% of us are probably like drinking a little and having a good time, and we're not hyper focused in, and we're not like studying you or something like that. But I don't know, off the cuff, do you think that we will be seeing like a VRChat developer club night at some point in time?
There has technically already been one.
Ooh.
The VRChat Summer Music Festival we did back in August, or maybe September. It was one of those. I'm sorry for not remembering. It was on the lineup, so I really should. Yeah, I mean, I think we had like 5 or 6 different DJs all on the team come in and play some sets, and it was a really good time. We got to celebrate in OK Gold's world, and that was incredible. So I'd imagine there'd be more, but you know, I don't know at this point. So
I know we were going a little bit back about I gotta try to piece this together a little bit. Kind of how you started and you just joined in the gambit and you were able to just kind of throw yourself in, as opposed to, again, working the circuit in VRChat where you come in, you get an avatar, you go to the Black Cat, you go to the Big Owl's avatar world or something, if it still exists. I haven't been there in a long time, but it does kind of seem like that is happening a lot more. And the only thing that I could blame is the 2017 streamer time when all the streamers came in around 2017, 2018, and they did have they had their walls up on who can join them on stream and who can be a part of their crew or whatever. But it does seem very very open for a lot of people to come in and just party with you, get to experience things, and having the groups now implemented in VRChat has really helped out a lot to be able to give people that opportunity to come in and say, hey, maybe we can get to know the DJs. Hey, maybe we can have a good time and experience all of that sort of stuff. And I think that's one of the things that was kind of partially part of the question about are we going to see another developer thing, because to me, that blows my mind. The fact that like we actually get a game that we love so much and we're in here all the time. And at some point in time, you do have some people who are like, oh, I want to meet some developers. I want to meet someone a part of the team. But then they're like, oh, I don't think I'm good enough to meet people of the team. I mean, if you're cool and you come in and you just be cool and not have to be like, oh my gosh, you made VRChat, you know, like the whole thing. But they also want to think of it like, I really want to party with them. You know, I really want to go and hang out with them and see what they do. And vice versa. I would think that the team wants to come in, get to know some really cool people, a part of our community, and hang out with them and kind of showcase what they do and the type of DJ stylings that they've got going on. So that was kind of partially the reason for the question. Is just the matter of, I mean, sure, we have a lot going on as regular DJs in our community when we're coming in and we're performing for people that they enjoy the music but may not want to DJ. But then I would also assume that the DJs want to go and see the developers and see if they got skills or not. You know what I mean?
yeah, I guess like it's kind of a I wasn't publicly a developer when I started like DJing. Actually, no, I started DJing before I was a developer. I can't say that a lot of people that join get really interested because it's of the whole place aspect. So they go and explore. They're amazed that there are music events going on in VRChat, and they go and hang out at them. And even if they don't have any VRChat experience beforehand, that is a pretty solid pathway that happens fairly often. So yeah, I'd imagine that there's going to keep on being more people interested in it from the team.
I had a similar experience working at iHeartRadio. I had been talking with some more executive types when I was working in a much larger city, and they were interested in virtual reality and how they can relay that information to a much higher up within the company. And we had lots of discussions about what would be the next latest greatest something as far as virtual reality is concerned. And they kept hearing about what was it, Travis Scott in Fortnite, how he had a concert in Fortnite. So that the company at iHeartRadio, they wanted to have a big thing in a big environment. And man, oh man, I can't even begin to tell you how many days and how many hours I was pushing to them, being like, guys, we're in virtual reality. We got the space. People be doing it all the time. There's a ton of people in here. You got a lot of influence. What's going on? And they heard it and they didn't understand it because it's virtual reality. So then they ended up asking Ariana Grande to go on Roblox. And I was like, I don't think that's the demographic that you're looking for. But I mean, I understand you don't understand video games. You understand the music part. So unless you say you sit going home and you say, oh, my kid is playing Roblox, maybe, oh, I wonder if Ariana Grande will be performing in Roblox. But more importantly, where I wanted to go with this is because you were saying that you've been working with video game development and graphics development and stuff like that. Personally, where do you see VR heading since the time that you graduated? Do you I mean, obviously we're at a kind of a crossroads of technology and how amazing the headsets are and the spaces. But have you done any further research on where VR applications could be headed?
Yeah, I mean, it is like it's my career to kind of like stay updated, especially in the design field, because something cool could be coming up that you want to account for in the designs that you're doing today. So I mean, like I'm always keeping up to date as much as I can. Things aren't moving as fast as they were before, and like it's not like I have insider information, right? I'm like just as like I only know what I know. So VR and really XR just in general, I've always sort of had the opinion that it's going to move to like be sort of like a glasses kind of heads up kind of display. So think of people walking around. Contacts would be awesome, but at the step in between there is going to be glasses. You're walking around the street with like AR glasses on. You get notifications on those, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your thoughts on the Apple Visions and the big boom when they had them, when they were releasing them.
Yeah, I think they're a fine headset. Like they fit a certain demographic. It's a good product, and they have a niche, right? It's not for everyone, I don't think, but the people that I know that do have them really enjoy them. I don't think it's an everyday kind of gadget, right? So the price point's pretty steep for something like that, but I think they're on the right path. They're probably gonna make something cheaper, I'd imagine, that appeal to more people.
I know one of the biggest things about that was kind of understanding durability. And I really hate to think that, from what I've seen, most Americans are looking to be like, oh, we've got this expensive thing. How long does it take for me to break it? Like, don't break it. It's expensive. Like, you just bought it, enjoy it, and then try to break it. But I just feel like instinctively, especially with some other durable technology, people are kind of hyper focused in on breaking that. And that's kind of, I don't know, I feel like it's a little weird topic to talk about, just because, like, obviously with the price point and the economy that we're in now, it's kind of difficult to fund it and also be kind of like I don't want to say entitled when wearing it, walking around being like, I'm in the future, I've got a future thing on my face. But at the same time, like, we have already seen a lot of the videos and the photos of people walking around with the headset on, and I think a lot more confusion than states from the people that don't understand. They understand phones, but they don't understand smartphones. And then you have people that understand that there's a virtual reality thing going on, but they also call it virtual reality when it's a little bit more complex than that. And you were saying contacts? You think that we're genuinely going to get contacts at some point in time?
I mean, I hope so. That'd be cool.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah,
but
I don't want to have to wear glasses all the time.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine wearing glasses, or even inset. I don't even know what you would call them, but having the glasses fit in your headset, kind of a thing. Lenses. That's what they're called. Lenses. Having lenses in your VR headset. We're here with Electro on VRCDJLIVE. Of course, we are live. It is a live program, so feel free to, if you have any questions for Electro, this is the time. This is the time to ask, because just in par usual, if we see Electro performing at any given time, I guarantee you, after he's done performing, he's going to want to get a water. He's going to want to wipe his face. He's going to want to go get a snack, go relax, go to the bathroom, and then maybe even take a nap. How do you normally feel after you finish DJing?
Well, it is very warm and humid where I live. So being here in a room that's not super well, air conditioned, very, very sweaty. I'm amazed some nights that the headset still stays on my head. I've got the Quest Pro on right now, and it's got like basically like rubber pads on it that are kind of, they shift around really easily. So yeah, right after a set, I need to like relax, get out of the headset for a good 5-10 minutes, and just like chill for a bit. And then I put on the headset and I get back into it. So
I kind of feel like those are the type of questions I need to be asking on this program because that's kind of it, you know. We do talk with the DJs, get to know a little bit about them, a little bit about the hardware, software that they use, but we don't really know what most DJs do after a set or even during a set. You know, I would think that a lot of people don't recognize that, like, you know, let's just say you're DJing and then someone comes up to you and starts talking to you, whether or not they're drunk, and they're just yep, and you're like, I'm DJing, and they don't recognize that because they don't know how to DJ. They don't know what's going on. So finding those moments in the program to kind of understand how most DJs, you know, react, and how, you know, we don't hear about it. We go through it, and
yeah,
and it just kind of happens.
I mean, like, I love people coming up to me and, like, you know, saying hi and nice set and all that stuff. It's awesome. And like I can take my break after that because I don't know when they're going to be headed off to the next place. So I definitely appreciate it. Like, you're not keeping me from doing anything. But you know, I'm sitting there, they're standing there all sweaty, and I'm like, you know, I should probably I should probably take that set off kind of soon.
Yeah, and to be like,
I don't want to break it.
just want to relax for like 10 minutes, man. Grab some water.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, water is important. Yeah, hydration, sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
But we want to kind of carry on with a lot of the different things that you have been working on in VR. Obviously, there's a lot of things that I believe that some people have recognized you for outside of just the DJing part. But then some people may not understand it quite yet because some of the concepts that you've put together with a lot of the things that you've created have such great meaning to it. And I think they'll work out very well. But I feel like a lot of people just haven't picked up on it quite yet. And I want to make sure that we get an idea of there's more to the scene than just dubstep and hardcore and drum and bass. You know, there's so much more than just those couple of things, those throwbacks and stuff like that. But before we even get into some of the world creation stuff that you have created, I want to talk a little bit about your inspiration on some of the things that you have been cooking up that people can purchase online, and those are those CDJs and the turntables and a lot of the 3D asset stuff that you have online. Tell us a little bit about how you even began. I know you were saying that you have been working in video gaming and platforming and stuff, but where did the love for sculpting and creating assets, especially for our community, kind of even start?
Well, let's see. I mean, like, back then, there were really no good decks out there. Now there's a ton, right? You see the stuff that like Windmill's making, awesome. Like the speakers that like Juno's making, incredible. But like back then, there really wasn't too much that you could purchase that was like a modern day game asset that you could upload and be comfortable with it being a high quality product that when you're done with it. So really, I had the skill set going in, 3D modeling, and you know, a lot of the texture work. I really like texture work. It's one of my favorite parts of it. That stuff, and just seeing that there was something absent, I was like, you know what, I want to try and do this. So I ended up working with a club directly to like be like, hey, I want to update your decks. Can I do that? Like, I'm here a lot. Like, I want to see like good quality stuff, because they had like the Unity Club Pack decks that are basically like a quad. You know, I was like, that won't do. We gotta fix this. So made some, and then I was like, hey, does anyone else want to use these? I'm gonna just like put your logo on the center of them, and kind of just like go from there. And turns out a bunch of people wanted them. I got like Sly messaged me from Slyfest and was like, hey, I want some Slyfest decks. And I was like, yeah, sure, go ahead. So I textured some up, put the Slyfest logo on them, and sent them over. And I did that for quite a few clubs. And all those first ones were just like free. I didn't really like see any point in selling them. Someone someday was just like, all right, your EDJs, you gotta sell those. Like people will actually buy them. At that time, I wasn't working on the team, so I was like, sure, go ahead, I'll put them up on booth. Started selling them for like, I think it was like $20, $20 per set. All the things after that are free. So I was pretty much just like, at that point, I joined the team. There's kind of like a weird sort of gray area about selling things when you're on the team, so I didn't want to deal with that. So all the things after that are just like free assets. I've got some speakers up there now. I've got just like avatar props, and I have a few other things I'm working on too, that are coming up. Hopefully, I was trying to get something done before January, but it didn't pan out that way. Too busy.
Yeah, especially with the holidays, it always seems like it's such a big rush. I kind of want a little bit about your opinion on, and this is something that I've been experiencing lately as of two, is that most of the venues that are readily available that I think are the popular venues that we go and perform at, they have their own version of a CDJ, and you'll probably see some sort of integration with the audio link inside of the video window, or let's just say the platters are spinning when in reality they don't spin, but they're just doing their thing. Do you have do you kind of have like a hot take on that? Is there something about those that kind of strike you a little bit, or do you think it's overly aggressive? Do you think, and like as far as the development part of it, does it matter on the frames because it's an animation moving compared to it not moving? Or
I mean, like, sorry, that last part just like ticked something in my head. There's only a very tiny performance impact when you have something as low poly and small as that moving around. Especially if you've done your due diligence in other part of world creation. So, yeah, the performance side of that is just that's not. But I mean, at the end of the day, like you're in VR, you can create your own reality. So if you want the jog wheels on the EDJs to spin, like you can. I made them spin on the EDJ because I was just like, it looks cooler that way, and people don't have movement in worlds, so you have to make sure something's moving. The DJs up front, a lot of DJs back then were desktop, so they were just like standing there at static decks. So I wanted to liven that up just a tiny bit. So why not make the jog wheels spin? Like they actually do spin, just not on their own.
not all the time.
You got to do that yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, you're in VR. Just do whatever you want. Like, I don't. Yeah. If like the audio link being on the screens is really cool, and I am kind of jealous that I don't have that shader. But you know, like do pretty much whatever you want to do.
And all of that's really fascinating to me too, especially, and again, I'm going to date myself a little bit, but several years ago, I think it was sometime in late 2020 with Miss Stabby's World, the syntax error, and some of the stuff that she had been kind of putting together. Especially, one of the things that was really fascinating to me was when she was in that world and the screen was a replica of, it was a capture of her actual screen, so she didn't have to have some sort of an overlay in your headset to be able to see what was going on. So do you think that we are kind of just another step in that right direction to where at some point in time we could be able to see something like that in the screens? Because having the videos or whatever's playing, I think what they do is they take the screen from the visualizer that you have up on the back, like behind you most of the time, or in this case, your visualizer when you do stream on Twitch, and have it kind of just in there, showcasing what's going on the screen. Do you think at any point in time that we were going to be so advanced where we can just be able to capture a thing and place it in world so we don't have an overlay?
Do you mean like DJing on controllers that will actually produce,
like actually
produce sound?
seeing Serato or Record Box in VRChat,
Gotcha.
so that we don't have the overlay on while you have the headset on?
That would be interesting, and I guess it's technically You could probably do it, but it'd be just about the hackiest thing ever. So I imagine like at some point that's going to be the case. And there are obviously like other VR platforms that are doing something similar. You have like Tribe that you can actually use DJ equipment. And like if someone is that dedicated that they want to put that into VRChat, not that system specifically, of course, but like develop their own thing, I can't imagine that it wouldn't be impossible. It seems like it's within that realm.
It's always very interesting the fact that as our community continues to grow, and even in the past 2 years, I have been explaining the boom of 2022, which I think a lot of people are getting tired of hearing from me now. But at the same time, it's kind of the truth. I think a lot of people, when they did see even the PBS special being 2 years old, that was a really key moment for VR chat in our community to kind of bring in talent, to bring in people that want to party. Obviously during the pandemic, that was a really big light to bring people into VR anyway, just to socialize. But as we continue to move forward and we're around the program understanding what the future is going to be like, I wanted to touch a little bit upon the whole project of some of the worlds that you've created through Contact, and it all stemmed off of the coffee world. So let's talk a little bit about the coffee world that you created first, and then I guess as you want, you can continue on into this whole phased project that you've been kind of working on back and forth for the past couple of years.
Sure. Yeah. So Veggies Coffee. That world is really old at this point. I got inspired off of like a YouTube video chill playlist. There was like a half of a concept art of a window and some tables and chairs. And I was like, I bet I could model what this whole coffee shop would look like. And then I brought it into 3D modeling application and I started tweaking it. And it was a lot of fun. I ended up going a little overboard on the design side of things. So if you've ever been there, you spawn in. You've been there, you've seen it, but I'll explain it. That you spawn in this tunnel. You're in sort of like this safe area, and then it opens up into a courtyard where you can see everyone in the coffee shop itself because of the gigantic windows. So you're in a safe space. You can see everyone. You know what you're getting into before you walk out of that tunnel, and you can decide to leave if you want to. Um, from there, I put the video player and decks in there to sort of make it feel like little local coffee shop gig. Like if you wanted to go in there and play some music, I know that people have gone in there and done like regular like deep house sets. That's Hysterium was doing the Morning Brew a while ago, and things like that. That was it's a fun little venue. I never really intended it to be like a part of Contact, especially when I was first starting out. But it made a really good jumping off point when I started to get further into kind of coming up with a concept for that. I guess I could go into some of the Contact stuff. The first Contact venue, I haven't really used it in a really long time, probably like a year and a half, but it starts with you spawning into the world. The original Veggies Coffee is daytime. This one's nighttime. And a lot of the people that went to those first few events were familiar with Veggies Coffee and some of the work that I had done. So it was kind of like a surprise. So there's kind of like a lore behind it where you have this basically like underground experiment research facility. There's some aliens underneath the coffee shop that I found one day, and you can go down the manhole cover and go in there and check it out. And there's this gigantic glass bulb when you get down there that is the experiment subject. That it's the DJ basically. So that was a lot of fun, and it has a lot of movement in it. Pretty much all of the venues that I've made have some kind of movement. I was talking about one of my pet peeves a little earlier. Not a whole lot of movement in those old VRChat venues. So I really wanted to try and start to add more so that it kind of picked up a little bit. But yeah.
I know kind of back and forth. We were having a couple of conversations about some of the development in the worlds that you were putting together, and the $1 million question that always piques a lot of people's interest, especially as we continue on into a brand new year of like, who's going to have the best venue? What's going to be the latest, greatest something that comes out? You know, what are people going to be happy? People are going to be upset. People are going to be doing this. Obviously, every world and every venue has its own charm. But there are a couple of things that we kind of have to continue to eyeball to see what would work the best. And again, bringing back up that concept of space and understanding where you're standing compared to the actual social bubble that we all have. You know, obviously, being distant from each other is pretty okay because it's not like you're too far, but you're not too close. And then when you start getting too close, it gets a little weird. But at the same time, we are seeing more venues where it is kind of in a smaller space, not to kind of cram everybody together, but a matter of showcasing a venue that it's full. And we were kind of going a little bit back and forth about like maybe even putting some sort of a collision on the side to kind of not really funnel, but like, yeah, kind of herd everybody onto the dance floor and kind of congregate there and talk amongst themselves or party or whatever, comparable to some of the other things that could be surrounding the DJ, maybe other distractions or maybe multiple floors, or occasionally you'll have those venues that kind of look like a house, but every room has to have something in it. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that. Some of the things that you've noticed from a lot of different clubs, the clubs that you've been putting together, and what I kind of want to see what has worked for you as far as what you think would make some really good assets in a world, comparable to something that you might think that a lot of people have been using too often.
Yeah. So worlds are like their own standalone art pieces, right? You can do whatever you want with them, and you're usually building towards a goal, right? So if your goal or vision for that world is, square concrete box, where everyone is in that space, they're having a good time partying shoulder to shoulder, some friends, some strangers, cool, awesome, go for it by all means. There's also the flip side of that, where it's like you go to a world and there's a DJ playing, but they're not really the focus. There's like a whole bunch of games out there. People are playing pool, they're playing skee ball, or whatever else the world creator wanted to put in their world. Both are totally valid, totally okay, right? It's what your goal is as the person that's making the world or as the owner of the club or venue. Whatever you want to do with it, you should be allowed to. As far as what I think is overused, I don't think anything is overused yet. Probably the most prominent asset you see in a lot of these club worlds is like the pool table. I don't have any problems with there being pool tables in clubs. It's an agreeable game that everyone knows the rules to. This pool table that we have in here tells you all the rules. Like before you even start playing, it tells you like what you should and shouldn't do. So I think it's a little bit of like social. It's social lubricant, right? You get in there, you play pool, you stick around. Maybe you're not interested in the music, but you can play pool, and maybe you stick around for the next DJ, and you're starting to feel it a little bit more. But your friends are there. You want to find something to do with them, you can play pool. Yeah, I don't know.
Do you think that the concept of underground venue or underground something that you heard from a hole in the wall, do you think that concept, it has been working for the past couple of years? A lot of clubs, a lot of venues offer that kind of like basement-y type of vibes. Do you think that's something that we're going to carry on into the new year, or do you think that there could be a brand new trend kind of coming down the line?
I think the underground boxes will forever be a staple. There are some that are done really well, and like that is what they wanted to do, what they set out to do, and they did it great. But a lot of the times those venues are very simple, because they're easy to make. You can whip one of those up in like a day. You throw some decks in, throw some Unity cubes in, throw some textures in, and you have a club, which is cool. It's a really low barrier to entry to make worlds. They're always going to be a thing at both levels, right? Because you have the really, really well-made ones that have all sorts of different features. They have the screen space, they have the DMX controller, they have cool lighting gimmicks. Like fog is a really, really cool thing right now, a really popular one. There's always going to be stuff like that coming out, and people iterating on their past ideas and making them better. So I don't know if it'll be like the trend in 2025, but I don't think we're ever going to get away from it.
I really enjoy, and I think a lot of people also really enjoy the idea of the boiler room style of venue. And obviously, this year there were a lot of different examples of that had been working out. And also, too, I feel like that's a good venue if you're going to do some B2Bs. Or I'm trying to remember what they were called. I think they were called F to Fs, front to front. Where instead of back to back, you had two DJ decks, and then you had the DJs looking at each other like this and going back and forth like that. So they were trying to revolutionize F to F, kind of back to the day. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because as of recently, Rebecca Black, the girl who made Friday, the song Friday, apparently she's DJs now, and she's a DJ, and apparently from the drama on the news that she did a boiler room. And people didn't like it, so they automatically want to cancel Boiler Room. I don't like that idea. That seems kind of silly.
That's a little silly.
Yeah. But kind of the same thing with the whole. I'm really glad that we've buried the whole Coachella business with like Grimes and Coachella, and the fact that Grimes came out and did her little stunt, and maybe the decks weren't working. Maybe she didn't understand the decks or something like that. But I'm really glad that we were able to bury that and kind of carry on and focus more on the future. But the same thing goes in here, I suppose, that if it resonates within our community that the boiler room setup doesn't work, we got to try to figure out something a little bit great, a little bit greater of a concept. Speaking of which, greater of a concept, I know we were recently talking about Kaleidosky. And how amazing Kaleidosky has been, not only for you and the disco community, as well as the Beat Syndicate and a lot of Ruse projects and stuff, but it is truly a vibe. And I feel like not too many people frequent that. I want them to. I want a ton of people in our community to go to Kaleidosky. Explain a little bit about Kaleidosky to a lot of people that don't know what that is, and kind of the vibe that world kind of gives off.
Yeah. So this is a fun one. It's one of my favorite places in VRChat. Rue is the one that oops, sorry, hit my mic. Rue is the one that runs those events every week. Just had the 3-year anniversary the other weekend, which was just awesome. Those events have been going on for so long, and they're always incredible and such a varied there's a wide breadth of genres that are played there. It's not just like disco. A lot of trancey stuff at the start for sure. The first venue of that series was Transcend. It had a lot of art pieces that were basically imported models from Tilt Brush and put all different kinds of shaders on it, with really a focus on the fantastical, right? It's the kind of place where you bring someone. You probably don't bring them on their first time in VR, but you go there and you're like, wow, this is amazing. Like the sky is moving, the sky is a video, and that's really hard to get out of your head after you've seen it, right? And those venues are all about having fun, right? Rue works with a world builder, my partner Tara, to make those things, and they are just an incredible team. And it's almost like a brainstorming session, just seeing those two work together. They're just like, what if we did this? And then they add it, and then it's awesome, right? So there's a whole bunch of like arcade cabinets underneath the floor in the most recent edition. That was just like one of those spur of the moment, like, what if we had an arcade downstairs? Like, that'd be awesome, wouldn't it? And it kind of goes back to the idea of like, maybe you're not vibing with the music, you can go do something else, right? It's a playground. And it's really whatever you make of it. Kaleidosky every Saturday. Rue, totally awesome. And you should go to Kaleidosky if you haven't yet. I can't imagine a better place to go and hang out on a Saturday. So
I always find it very interesting how like I was kind of doing my little yearly time capsule and or kind of a recap of what I've done this year. And the greatest part of like the first couple of months of 2024 was just that, exploring a ton of different worlds and a ton of different groups and vibes and getting to know different genres of DJs and experiences and stuff. And Kaleidosky always wins in my heart and my mind, just so you can go there and not only experience the music, but it reminds me of like if you if you're in your car and you want to be like at the concert, right? And you turn up the volume in your car and you could feel it in your chair and you're singing loud with the music and you got your windows down and you feel like you're at the concert, you know, like you're in the music, kind of living that vibe. That's what Kaleidosky is giving me, as well as everybody else that goes to those types of shows. Is just you want a fourth dimension on that music, whether it be visual or, you know, a lot of us, you know, for me, I lay on the floor sometimes and I close my eyes with the headset on, and being able to open my eyes and just seeing a whirlwind of color and all sorts of different things going on, visual effects. Yeah. But that kind of aids to the last question that we were kind of identifying an answer to, which is the types of experiences and the types of environments that we have currently in VRChat to aid in that type of effect and environment. But all the additional things that will aid in your time being spent in there. You know, again, we go back to like the bar worlds where you do have the Pong and you have the pool tables and the darts and stuff like that, or the mirror even. That's kind of a big draw in VRChat. It's not a real world until you have a mirror in it. I mean, that's just kind of that's the rule. But Kaleidosky delivers something else. It delivers a visual representation of the music that you're listening to. But just as I've seen Tara work very hard on, is those, you know, like those little glowy ball things. You know, you don't actually have to have them on your avatar. You could hold on to them and kind of do your own little thing going on there. So,
yeah.
And that's one of the things that impresses me a lot when going to see some of these instances too, is just getting a better understanding of theming over a vibe.
Yeah. And sorry, I totally just remembered. It's called Kaleidosky because the sky is a video player. I don't know if I mentioned that. I don't think I did. That's like one of the coolest parts, is that there's a whole video system in there with a camera, and you can have basically like real-time VJing, right? You're talking about how it'd be really cool to see, like, you know, actual DJ controllers in VR. Kaleidosky has this visual system where there's a camera, you can make it rotate. There's a bunch of props that you can put in front that are rotating, and all different kinds of shaders. And in real time, and even dancers will come in. Like Steph goes in, stands in front of the camera and dances. And you can see that in the skybox, and it's a kaleidoscope. It's kaleidoscope.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because like you were sitting there laughing, talking about how the sky was video, and I was like, it's kind of like a kaleidoscope, but in the sky.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all that kinds of, you know, it's a playground, right? Like I said that a little bit before, but there really isn't a venue that is more like a playground than Kaleidosky. You can go in there and just do basically whatever you want. Like there's games, there's like a racetrack downstairs, there's arcades, there's a lazy river. The lazy river is my favorite part. Where you could just like sit in a raft and just like look up at the sky, and it takes you around the venue. I spent quite a few hours some nights just staring at the skybox and watching that go by. So
I was going to ask you, because I know you were just saying how they just put in the arcade cabinets downstairs. I mean, there's a lot of DMX lighting and shaders that go on when they're turned on. Does that affect the gameplay, or do you see a lot of people going down there to play those games during events too?
Oh yeah, like so. Yeah. Okay. So when you say affects it, what do you mean? Like performance wise,
No,
or
well, again, I don't know what it's properly called, but there are a couple of shaders that allow you to like turn down uh to have like all black shadow effects with like the rim lighting on all of the avatars.
gotcha? Okay.
Yeah, and it like
Yeah.
minimalizes your vision a little bit, but everything else has a glow kind of a thing.
Mm. Yeah. The visual effects. I mean, if you're down there playing one of the games, then yeah, you're gonna get the screen space
Oh.
effects. You can turn it off, right? There's toggles for just about everything in Kaleidosky, because I mean, you can imagine the Skybox being a video player. Just about anything can be on that video player. So if you're like sensitive to light, for example, you need an option to turn that off like immediately.
Mhm.
So there's those options. So if you really want to, you can go there and just play the arcade cabinets with no visual interruptions. But part of the fun is the visual interruptions, right? So like the racetrack, you could be flying around the racetrack at full speed, and then your screen just blacks out because someone at the visual panel turned all of the shaders down to black. You can't see anything,
Mhm.
um, which is fun unless you're trying to go get like a high score or something. But that's just part of the experience, right? I mentioned this sort of like ephemeral nature of events in VRChat. Like you never know what you're going to get into, and it's never going to be the same as it is that day ever again. And something I neglected to mention about Kaleidosky too, they have every different kind of genre that you can imagine, and there's usually no like, you can have like disco music and then hard techno right after, right? Which is really cool. And then Rue also books a lot of like first time DJs too, and you never know what they're going to bring to the table. And a lot of the times, it's really, really good. Um, Rue's my like DJ mentor, and she's almost always like on calls with people, teaching them how, and then bringing them into Kaleidosky so that they can show off their stuff to everyone there. So
I know one of the things I mentioned. It was quite a surprise when I clicked on the Beat Syndicate's group here in VRChat, and there is an attached video to it that not only showcases Kaleidosky but actually shows a piano performance in it. And I mean, if there was any other cinematic thing that you could technically be doing while watching a piano player perform outside of actually seeing physical notes being flown out of the piano like a cartoon, that would be the place to do it, because you could have endless possibilities when it comes to the visuals and how the sky can be produced while you're performing whatever you're performing. So obviously, definitely highly recommend that you guys go check it out, Kaleidosky on VRChat. And kind of want to take a little bit of focus of how that was developed and how that acts and how it reacts to a lot of the worlds that you create, especially with Contact, for those people that will get that experience this year to be able to see a lot of the shows that hopefully you'll be able to have events there this year. But one of the things that is absolutely amazing to me is you replace a lot of the actual Canon lights with more visual appealing lighting effects with like LED screens.
yeah, with a lot of the Contact venues, I try to find an interesting feature that hasn't really been done yet, and then just magnify it, right? So the first venue had the gigantic projector of the DJ. That was a lot of fun. People would go in there and be like, "There's a giant hologram of the DJ up there," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's cool." And I added, there's a rotating dance floor. It's like an egg holder, the center where the DJ stands. You saw it. And then there's a ring around the outside that was originally two circular platforms, where dancers would stand, because I was working with Calibrate back then, to get dancers in on those platforms. And then eventually people wanted to dance on that platform too. So I put that gigantic like circular ring in around the DJ, and people like that too. And then for the following venues, I focused on magnifying other features. So things like, I have LTCGI and centrifuge. Centrifuge is a big circle. The entire floor moves in centrifuge. It's a light up floor with all the squares and everything, and a whole bunch of reflections. Basically just like if there was a venue on the bridge of a spaceship, what would it look like? Was sort of the inspiration. That was kind of like the next step, right? So the first contact venue was you have seen the aliens, you're doing experiments on them, with them, whatever, and now you're in space. You're on the bridge of a ship, and that's where we're at right now in the lore of it. Then I have other smaller projects in between. I just released a world contact discotheque and lounge, which is kind of like a side thing. It's not a main contact venue. It's actually the first contact world before I even made the one under the coffee shop that I just never finished. So I basically modernized it and released that. And the cool features there are just like a ton of movement. There's smoke coming out of machines through the walls and windows. There's giant light poles that rotate and kind of like alternate. There's a giant disco ball and light up floors, and it really just like it's about the glamour in that one. So
I always think a lot about not not keeping it simple, but at the same time not doing so much. And I feel like when it does come to a lot of VR chat applications in the club scene, maybe even just avatars is a good example of that. You have a lot of people, they want the 8K textures, they want the realism, they want all the chains, they want them all to move, they want all the chains pulling, you know, and like that's all great, grand, and good, but at the same time, there's something has to bend, you know, something has to break a bit, where not everybody can have all these moving parts, because obviously we're all in the same instance together, and that takes up a lot of computing power for that case. But checking out some of the worlds that you've created and being able to pull apart the kind of the regular norms of most club venues, where it's just like, all right, you have to have all these props everywhere, or a big old video screen in the back, or maybe like volume control when you're talking. And I feel like there is a norm, and it can be normal, you know, people can enjoy it, and that's if that's what they enjoy. But the way I see it, and the way that you kind of explained yourself a little bit at the beginning of this interview, was just a matter of, how can I make this even better, and how can I get really good at this? And that's what surprises me so much about your process and all of this is, for those people that get an opportunity to see Contact, is it's not a matter of you're missing some of those things. It's a matter of developing a whole nother way of enjoying yourself. And one of the things you were explaining to me, and we're going to talk a little bit about it going forward, is just that, is the social aspect of these clubs. You can go to a club, you can go to a venue and enjoy the music. That if it's centered around that, yes. Obviously, there's some venues that center a lot about the dancing, and that's surprising too, because those dancers are really incredible. But there are some clubs missing out on the social aspect of it. The matter of, while the music is important and you're there and you're having a good time, you're going to want to have a good time with the people that you want to have a good time with, you know? Like, you can go to the bar with your friends, you could dance at the bar with your friends, but I don't think you're meant to dance at the bar with your friends. I think it's just a matter of you go and enjoy the bar because it's the bar. But there's just something about the discotheque version of that world that you showed me the other day, where I was genuinely surprised that behind the DJ, it wasn't as busy as most clubs usually have the video screen. You know, you had the logo, and the logo was a video screen, but it wasn't aggressive. It was, you were there having a good time and you were vibing.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a mesh in between a whole bunch of different kinds of things. So the DJ in Contact is, I guess, kind of, at least in the discotheque and lounge world, they're kind of a focus. But really, you're there to socialize. You're there to talk to friends. And with the events that I've run in there and seen in there, because it's a public venue, anyone can use it for whatever they want. The DJ isn't like the the thing going on. They're providing the music, which is really cool. But at the same time, like my goal for that was to basically get everyone on the floor. It's relatively small dance floor compared to a lot of other places, and it's enclosed that keeps people in the dance floor in the little pit. And there's ramps that go up to the outside. You can't exit the dance floor any way except for up those ramps on the side. You can't get in except for going down those ramps on the side. So it keeps people in there. You're in there, maybe you're not vibing with the music, but you're stuck because there's walls all around you, and it's not a communicated thing. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to usher people into communicating with other people. Maybe they're not interested in the music, but there's plenty of people around them. They're shoulder to shoulder with people. So try and socialize with them. There are screens that fly around back and forth across the venue. So if you're bored in a conversation, you could look at one of the screens that are flying around just to see what the visuals are like. But they're not behind the DJ, so you don't look at the DJ to like see what's going on their visuals. And I guess, well, okay. There's a gigantic screen on the ceiling too, right, that lights up the whole venue, but it's not something that you can see from the dance floor. Very purposefully, it just provides the lighting for it. So yeah, it's a social space, right? It's a contact discotheque and lounge. If you want to go there to dance to the DJ's music, you can. And it's also a lounge, so you can go there and chat with people and just like hang out for the night. It's providing options for people, and that's kind of the hope with that one, as opposed to some of the other contact venues where like the DJ is literally the center of a circle, and there's a giant platform rotating around that kind of forces you to look at the DJ because all of the lines. I don't know if you saw this, but in Contact, the centrifuge, all the lines point towards the DJ because they're the focus in that venue. So it's about the vibe that you want to try and communicate. You don't have to do it directly. You could do it almost subconsciously to people. So
I think it's interesting that you said it like that. You keep doing the emphasis on lounge, and if for those people that normally go to a lounge, some of that aspect, again, like you were saying, is mostly social. That you're there either having some drinks or maybe you have a cigar or something, but you're always in good company, whether you're in like a small alcove area with a table and chairs, or maybe just on the main dance floor or whatever. But and the reason why I keep bringing that up too is because like you were saying, your visuals, your video visuals on the ceiling, I could genuinely see it if I were to go to a lounge. I would love to see the visuals running down the hallway, as opposed to like billboard style, like having it a way that showcases the light and the vibe of how that's going. Now in a real lounge scenario, unless you're in Las Vegas, I would only assume, Las Vegas would probably have the money to have those video ceilings to be able to go all the way down. But it's quite the spectacle to see outside of your standard point and shoot kind of lighting effects or strobe lights or whatever. But it has a vibe to it that brings the social graces together. Another thing that I wanted to kind of focus in on when it comes to Contact is the Masquerade aspect that you're hoping to kind of include into all of this. And it's something that kind of got me interested a lot in the different types of worlds that you're creating as well, because while the concept exists, it isn't quite something that our community does as frequently as we want to. But I also think it's a good avenue that people can start to do this because it sounds really fun. And the aspect is, and I'll have you go into a little bit more detail with it, but some of these worlds also have an event space where you can make like either a second account or wear a different avatar and hide name tags and interact with people without using your proper name, kind of like a masquerade ball. You put on a mask and socialize without worrying too much about social statuses or any other egregious, I guess that's a term, just things that you may know about them. It's all a mystery, and you get to socialize with people and keep remaining that mystery, but also keeping that social aspect to it.
Yeah. the alt side of Contact, or Masquerade side of it, it's it has a few different purposes, right? Like you can go to any different venue if you've been around for a while, and you see a whole bunch of people with yellow names. They're all your friends. You've seen them before. They have certain expectations for you, and you have certain expectations for them, and it's really hard to get away from that. That's just how social systems work. You know someone, you know things about them, and you expect them to behave in a certain way. Um, the hope with Contact is to put you around people that you feel comfortable with, because it's going to be a lot of the same people, um, and you know that they're good folks and whatever. But make it a socially acceptable space for you to use that alt account without having to worry about any kind of stigma that comes with it, right? So when you go to any club, you show up as a visitor in full body tracking, maybe with face tracking. People are going to be like, "That's an alt account. Why are you hiding?" Right? Um, you can do that, and there's ways around it. Like you can just go in half body if you want to, and try and avoid that. Um, Contact is a safe place for you to do that for any reason that you want. There are like tons of different reasons that you might want to use an alt account. A lot of what you said, like social status, can be a part of that. Like if you are someone that gets recognized anywhere you go in VRChat, then you can go to Contact on an alt account and kind of feel safe that you're not going to get, hounded by a bunch of people. And if maybe you join VRChat, you made a bunch of friends, but maybe you want to figure out something else about yourself, right? VRChat is a good place for people to sort of rediscover themselves. You can put on the headset and be whatever you want. You are the alt account of your IRL person until you change that. Making an alt account in VRChat is sort of the same thing, except within VRChat. You can make one, rediscover yourself, and then continue on with that if you want to, or not if you don't. So
I think it's also a really good safe space too, especially with the fact that there are still a ton of people that are either joining into VRChat currently or are in VRChat that it's not even a matter of just checking your etiquette in clubs, or maybe it could be an experience of you trying to understand the club life to begin with. I hate to say this because it's kind of true, but during TwitchCon, at TwitchCon, you have a bunch of people that come in from our community, the regular VRChat community, that are excited but timid. And they're excited to meet the friends that they've met in real time, but at the same time, they're nervous because there's an IRL aspect to it. And outside of that, on Fridays and Saturday nights of the convention, especially for me and putting on a show, we try to give them that club experience. But the social anxieties do come in occasionally, saying like I have never been to a real club. I really hope that this goes exactly the way I want to. Or some people are going to say it like, maybe I don't understand, I don't know, maybe tipping culture, or how you're supposed to react at the club or something. And we give those experiences too. But having this new style of engagement with the club scene in VRChat, it's welcoming, it's warming, it's something that I feel like we all need to get to enjoy firsthand, especially because occasionally, yes, you'll see some videos or something on social media about an underground basement something, and it's got the thing. It's just like I don't want to be like you're only the cool people hang out here or something like that. Gives off those types of vibes, and then you go there and it kind of makes you second guess of, do I belong here? Is this something that am I going to be okay being here all the time, despite it being a popular thing? But that concept is super intriguing, and it's super interesting for me, especially because, like, again, leading into the fact that during the holidays, we're getting a lot more people with new headsets. We're getting new PCs. Honestly, too, I've been talking to someone who has great influence in the record business that genuinely wants to see what we're up to in here. But and just as we've said with our previous guest Creepy last week, is sometimes you really shouldn't be showing the type of status that you have or influence that you have. And coming in here just as a regular individual is important for the growth of your career in VRChat, because you're going to want to get to know some people on kind of an even keel, as opposed to coming in being like, well, I have this and I have that and I'm cool here and I'm whatever. Because sometimes the other people don't have that same type of influence too. And being able to experience that on a nice even level, I believe is certainly important, not only just for the whole idea of VRChat, but the club scene in general too.
Yeah, it's a level playing field, which is really cool. You can divulge as much information or as little information about yourself as you want, which is totally unique. You can change how you look, you can change how you act, completely different, which is cool and also a little scary sometimes, right? Like there's two sides to that. But for the most part, like, you know, it lets people experiment and see, like, you know, maybe there's this this thing about me I want to discover, and that gives you the freedom to do that. And that's pretty unique. And everyone in here is very open-minded about that sort of thing too. So there's not really much else like it.
Especially with gosh, I had it on the tip of my tongue and then I looked at the screen because I was going to ask you another question. Uh, but yeah, just the matter of that fact too is it's super special in my opinion, just because again, when you first come in here, you're automatically kind of drawn to the popular worlds that a lot of the new people tend to focus their attentions on. But there really isn't a popular world outside of stuff that you've heard on social media about the rave scene or the club scene that can generate the same type of environment. You know, you can go to the Black Cat, you can go to the Pug and get to talk to people publicly, but being able to do that firsthand with the club without you know, the pumping music and then you're screaming in the guy's face being like are you enjoying the music too? You know, like I can't even imagine doing that. But having it, you know, at contact just seems like something that would be really pleasant for those types of for individuals, especially as we continue on with the new year. I want to pick your brain a little bit before we get on out of here because we just have a few more minutes left of the program. But I'm a little bit curious about the new disco funk stylings that you do use a lot in your performance and a lot of your DJing. But I also feel like, again, not enough, there still aren't enough DJs that provide that type of music in here. Have you seen a steady growth of DJs being more interested in that type of genre?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Um, they're they're in all different parts of the community too, right? I don't think there's a central congregation of them. I don't think there's, you know, a disco cabal in here, right? There's like, there's a handful of people that play it, and there are maybe like 4 different venues that are dedicated to disco. Everything else is an impromptu sort of disco night kind of event, right? Like even Contact isn't specifically a disco event. It's anything you want. I book DJs and they play anonymously. They can play whatever. The disco side of things with people coming in and starting up, I see a lot of people that are sort of new to like EDM stuff, and they're like, you know, disco, I really like dancing to it. I can play this too. And it's a relatively easy genre to learn mixing with, especially some of the more disco house stuff, because it's very predictable, right? You don't have to know exactly what occurs during the track at what points to be able to mix it into the next one. And it's easy to learn over time when you should start mixing something out and something back in. So it's really easy to pick up. And then you have a lot of people that have been playing IRL at shows for a while, that come in here and are like, you know what? Like I'm gonna start playing disco. I didn't know that there was disco going on in VRChat. One of the more recent examples of this, or more recent, they came in a while ago. DJ Snowwolf just opened up a venue called Icon. It is incredible. It is a recreation of a nightclub in New York, where you have DMX lighting, you have screen space shader controls, and you're in a dome, almost like an auditorium observatory type deal, where you can play disco music or really, any kind of genre you want, but disco just really sings there. Um, and you obviously have other places that are dedicated to it, like Studio 45, where it's like a recreation of a real venue that is meant to play disco in, and that's incredible. But as far as like number of DJs go, there's always room for more. I think one of the hurdles is finding those specific events or nights where it's okay to play it. That's kind of the hardest part, because if you go to, you know, some event that's playing like techno music, they're playing just like mixed genres, and someone's like playing drum and bass, and then you got some techno, and then you got like hard style, and then you're like, I have this creative disco music. People are going to be a little confused for a bit. So the I, I honestly think one of the hurdles there is just not enough places that are dedicated to the genre, like there are for other genres. Safe places for people to play music that they actually like want to.
That's also kind of another important feature when it comes to understanding genres, and as well as genre themed nights is I would love to see some more like 90s hip hop. I think that's one of the best takeaways that I've been experiencing recently is just being able to theme it to a specific thing as opposed to a genre. Just like have an actual theme night, maybe have an 80s night or the 70s night or something like that. But I think one of the hardest things to do, especially in our community, because we kind of haven't talked a little bit about it, is while it would sound like a great idea, I think people are still really hesitant to play those genres if they don't have as much experience with it. And what I learned from a good DJ friend of mine, he basically explained it really doesn't matter how much of a crate you have or how much skill you have in it. You play the music, people are going to enjoy it. So even if it is just like the top 40 hits of the hip hop 90s, people still know what those are. Just make sure that you play them and you have a really good time with it. And I actually kind of challenge a lot of our community to do something like that. That if we are going to play disco, yes, Dancing Queen is always a big hit. You're still going to kind of dance to it because you're either going to be rolling your eyes being like, oh, Dancing Queen, or be like, I don't think I'd ever danced in VR to Dancing Queen before. Let's do it. This is the time to do it. So, but you're right. Just saying it like that too is, again, testing the waters and getting more people to experiment with it more and do more with it. That I think is something that I would hope to see a lot more this year.
Yeah, one of my theories is that everyone loves disco music, but they just don't. They're at like different stages of knowing it and not knowing it. Like I said, it's an agreeable genre that you can go in and like kind of enjoy. But I think it's one of the most I keep saying agreeable, but there's not really any other term for it. Like you can be at any stage of like, I love this, it's what I do, it's my life, and you're like, oh, I can chill to that music. I have it on in the background. It's just so versatile. So
It's the reason why they got the funk in there, so you can get
yeah,
funky with it. Sometimes you got to get funky with it. That's just it.
yeah, totally.
Uh,
Yeah.
Of course, we're here with Electro, and before we get on out of here, I tend to ask our guests the very important question at the end, and I hope that you have found an answer to it. I know the question was lying amongst the questions that I gave you recently, but what are your top 3 DJs in VRChat that we should be looking forward to in 2025?
Oh God, that's I saw that one in there and I glossed over it, I guess. Um, that is a really tough question. So one of the DJs I mentioned Snowwolf a little earlier. He's been DJing for the longest time, doing all sorts of event production. He plays some really, really good stuff. And if you get the chance to go to a DJ Snowwolf set, do it. You're gonna have a great time. But also bring a lot of energy drinks or coffee or whatever, because he goes for a long time, and it's awesome that he does that. But like you got to check out one of his performances. And there's a few others. I mentioned we mentioned Rue at Kaleidosky. She plays some of the most like moving, influential sets that you can go to, and they're so varied. So sometimes she plays like trance sets that are just incredible. She plays disco sets that are also really, really good. And she puts her heart into it, and you can tell every track is just like there for a reason, and that is just an amazing feeling. And honestly, one of my other favorite DJs in here, Juno Tanuki. One of the reasons I started playing disco in here is because he was playing a lot of it way back in the day, and a lot of hip hop stuff too. And I was like, oh, you can actually play stuff like Breakbot in VR, and people like it. Like, that's awesome. I want to do that. So whenever I get the chance, I stick around for one of his performances. And funny enough, actually, in Veggie's Coffee, I had a grand opening event. Juno, Rue, and myself were on the lineup, and we all played disco. Really, really, really great night. And yeah, I try to make their sets as much as I can. So.
I will say that I think it was a few days before Christmas. There was an event happening at Club LA, and I saw Juno Tanuki perform. And I was only there for like maybe 20 minutes or so, but I did not want to leave.
Yeah.
that dude came out of nowhere with some of the stuff that he performs. Yeah, so
yeah, he plays a lot of classics too. Like if you can catch one of his sets where he's just like playing some classic shit, you really, you're in for a treat. Same for the other two I mentioned too. Snowwolf plays marathon vinyl sets sometimes. And Rue, she knows all of like the really deep cuts. So yeah.
That's what I'm saying. We gotta make sure that we we talk about these amazing DJs in here and kind of shine the light on them. And I know Rue has touched a lot of people in this game and has really good influence. Very, very awesome person. So, but I would definitely want to go check out that third DJ as well. But before we get on out of here, Electro, why don't you tell everybody at home where they can find you online?
I am on pretty much all the socials as Electro VRC. ElectroVRC.com has my link tree. So if you want to check out like my booth or Blue Sky or whatever else I have linked in there, that's probably the best place to do it. There's also like email in there if you're official or something. I don't know.
And then come into VRChat to come see some of your sets.
Yeah, totally. I have a link to my profile in there too.
Perfect.
So send me a friend request. If it's not a troll account, which I do get quite a few friend requests from like just trolls, they're very obvious. If it's not one of those cases, then I accept all the friend requests that I get. So
like Uganda Knuckle Lovers 69 or something like that.
Yeah, they're not very sneaky about it. They don't know that everyone knows. So it's a little funny.
Yeah, no doubt. But Electro, thank you so much for coming by and hanging out with us on VRCDJLIVE.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. I don't really do interviews very often, so this was a really fun experience for me. And it's a really cool place you've got here. I don't know if you can see too many on the camera angles that you've got, but this world is really cool. And it's a great thing that you're doing. I was looking at some of the past interviews that you've done, and it's all been really, really, really great stuff. So I hope you keep doing it for a long time.
I hope so, but just as we've said, 500 clubs with how many DJs attached to those clubs? That's a tall order, my guy.
To get through. Yeah, you gotta have everyone and every club come in and give an interview.
Everybody's gonna have their own fight. Oh my gosh, my life. But anyway, yes, but a real pleasure to have you here, and of course, everybody at home. We're gonna be able to see some highlights and the replay up on YouTube by this weekend. I will be able to get some highlights up for you by tomorrow with Electro, and of course, be sure to follow Electro both on Twitch and over on the electric tree. I was gonna say the electric tree. It's the link tree. We'll call it the electric tree just for now. But guys, thank you all so much for attending, and again, thank you so much for following on past the new year. Obviously, we got plenty of new guests coming up for January, including next week's guest on Thursday. We're going to be sitting in with Rose and VR to discuss their role within Subsystem's community, as well as DJing and a lot of the Japanese influence that she's got going on in her life. And it's going to be very exciting to go talk with her. So make sure that you're following along with the program here on Twitch for all of that. So for Electro, for myself, and our staff, this has been VRCDJ Live, and we will see you next week.